Hey, hello everybody. This week we have Peter Wilkins, who's going to give us something a little bit unusual in the spirit of safaris. So, Peter, over to you and your water stories.
Great, thank you. Yeah, this is a talk about my own experience, this amazing journey that I've found myself on recently. It's been very good for my mental health. And just a disclaimer, all opinions expressed are solely the result of my mind, do not express the views of my employer or my higher self. Okay, so going to cover, well, the first part will be an introduction to some water cycles, maybe a slightly different way of thinking about things. And then I'll sort of take you through my trip to Portugal and the course that I did. And then at the end, we'll do a share, maybe some questions. Great. And I'll try to do these subjects justice, but I'm a bit of a free spirit. I'm not very rigorous or scientific. So yeah, if you want to dig in more with the Water Stories website, it's a great community and they have lots of very good videos, lots of information. And if you decide to join, get a link from me and then I can get a gold badge. The little things. Right, okay, so water is life. I heard recently where 99% of our molecules are water. We say we're carbon-based life forms, but really we're water-based. And I wonder why this is, maybe why we're obsessed with CO2 levels rather than other things. So yeah, there's some changes. Changes are given, it's a constant, but we would prefer more positive change. And maybe I can do an ask first. People can pop things in the chat if they feel the desire. What changes have you noticed over your lifetime, positive or negative, that could be related to the water cycle? For me, I kind of lament the lack of bugs. It's a bit of a strange one, but when I was young, you'd drive down the road and the car was thick with bugs in the windscreen. Swallows in all the barns on the farm where I grew up, but not anymore, sadly. Something I noticed because in Portugal there were lots more swallows, even in a motorway services right in the door. There was loads of them just with babies hanging out. So yeah, if you think of something to put it in the chat, please do. Okay, so water can be powerful, can be destructive, and as I've done this course, I kind of learned to see water in a different way, and you kind of notice the signs of it even when it's not there. So you might see debris really surprisingly high up in trees or fences in places, showing you the signs that things aren't always dry. And there's the case of the mysterious rocks that walked on the salt pan. Has anyone come across that? So these strange little tracks left by rocks, and it turns out it's ice or water and ice kind of pushing them around at certain weather conditions. The inverse of too much water is not enough once it's all been sort of rushed out to sea. And in fact, nearly all places on Earth have enough rainwater, enough rain every year to support vegetation. But it's just not evenly spread out, so it's called the brittleness scale. In fact, parts of Essex and East Anglia are technically deserts based just on how much rain falls there. But because it's evenly spread out, the vegetation does well. So plants left to their own devices use the earth, use various tricks to store or equalize water availability. And I just invented that word, and it's the best word. Right, once we get to this point, there's not much we can do. And I'm sorry if this has been a bit of a downer so far, but I'm very filled with hope right now. So hopefully by the end, you will be as well. And again, another thing to put in the chat, if you're inspired to, can you think of a place where you've experienced a healthy ecosystem, a primary forest, a balanced water cycle? How did it make you feel? Did you have a special moment, like a nature moment? For me, I visited the jungles in southern Mexico, and they were stunning waterfalls. And the other place is home. It's the Norfolk Broads, which are very beautiful, especially in the winter when there's no tourists. Okay, so the first water cycle we'll cover is the full water cycle. This is when things are functioning well. Nature's invented a brilliant kind of water filter and temperature buffering system. It's just powered by the sun. And I like to think that life started in the oceans, and then it sent forth pioneers onto the land to clean up the water and to keep the seas healthy. Nice, the rainforests in Australia. Yeah, I hope they're still there. I encourage you to research the biotic pump. It's kind of a new idea in science. So actually trees manipulate humidity and pressure, opening and closing their stomatas. They draw in the sea breezes. They release or microorganisms, these hydrophilic microorganisms kind of get into the air, create wind, and the trees are even creating wind, creating rain, creating wind. So that's worth a look. It's very interesting. Some research using isotopes showed that 50% of Amazon rain has come from the forest rather than from further away like the sea. And I'm going to botch this pronunciation, but the Maori name for the North Island in New Zealand, Aotearoa, and it means the land of the long white cloud, which is what they saw when they arrived. But sadly, the trees are gone, so is the cloud. But we can bring it back. Trees grow pretty fast in the grand scale of things. So rain is absorbed by cool, protected soils that are aggregated by soil life. And I even learned an interesting fact recently that if you leave a sugar bowl out when it's humid, it gets a kind of a crust on it. Well, plants are constantly pumping the sugars they make into the ground. And apparently this also draws the rain in. Need a PhD student to go research that, maybe see if it's true. But yeah, it's all connected. My youngest is 10 years old. He's obsessed with seals. I don't know, it's an ugly teddy. And he was a bit upset the other day thinking about seals. Weren't very happy. And I thought the beavers help the seals. So beavers are creating dams and kind of cleaning, filtering the water and stopping erosion, which kept the kelp forests healthy. Because if the sea is too turbid, then the sun can't get down to the bottom. Unfortunately, a lot of kelp forests were lost. Like there were these enormous ones off the coast of California. And kelp forest means habitat, which is fish, which is happy seals. So yeah, other examples. Ask me about how bears help bees. It involves mushrooms. It's very interesting. So the question I'd like us to ask is, what's our role in this great choir of life? Not this. The second water cycle is what we call the watershed death spiral. And if the vegetation is kind of disturbed or gone, then the filter breaks. We get the erosion into the sea, as I said. Bare soil gets extremely hot. The hottest we found in Portugal with a little thermometer, laser thermometer, was 69 degrees, which is pretty crazy. About 20 degrees when there's vegetation. And as all the thing, the soil can't absorb the water when it's that hot. It's like putting drops of water in a hot frying pan, kind of tries to jump out and escape. So yeah, heat is a real problem. Green is good. There's evidence that Australia was recently, geologically terms, green and had a huge lake at the center. Somehow that went away. Next. Okay, so another aspect is that the warm, wet air is kind of bounced away from the land by the heat dome, and it builds up until it violently overwhelms the dome. Last summer, there were storms in the Med where boats were washed up all over the shore, very powerful rains causing a lot of erosion. And I just got this slide to show some of the statistics. This is for America. I think in the UK we're even doing worse on wetlands, but 87% drained, rivers are sort of straightened and sealed, diverted. Not not working with nature here, but on the right hand side you can see there are very small, simple things that can have big impact. Small is beautiful. So you can kind of have a think about, maybe you already are working with water. My brother has a life hack. He had a problem where his conservatory, every summer it would start to fall off the house. Had quotes for tens of thousands of pounds to fix it. And then he realized that the tree was drying out the clay under the conservatory. So he rerouted his bath water. The tree's happier. The conservatory isn't falling off anymore. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities. It starts grassroots with us. Okay, so yeah, erosion. We're really suffering from a lack of beavers these days. In the past, 20% of North America was open water before the fur trappers came. My wife wanted to say that not only was the fur valuable, but there was also an anal gland that smelt of vanilla and had medicinal properties because of all the willow they ate. It had salicylic acid. But anyway, and the other fact I like is that during this megafauna era, there were beavers the size of Volkswagen Beetles. I think that's quite cool. But yeah, we need some. We need to bring the landscape plumbers back to fix the leaks. More on this later. And then, sadly, once things get so dry, you know, you can't start a fire with wet wood. But once it's dry, especially if there's a lot of monocultures of eucalyptus around, then yeah, things get really serious at this point. But there's solutions. We'll get to them. So humans need to survive. As the sort of groundwaters go, the springs and wells dry up. So dig boreholes, we'll build these giant kind of centralized sealed reservoirs. These actually have the effect of making the situation worse. You think of water, groundwater is like a bank account. Some places are severely overdrawn now. And then eventually the land's abandoned and desert. So the third cycle is the revived water cycle, and as the inventor of permaculture, or one of the co-inventor, says, the solutions are embarrassingly simple. So I think just like the water, we just need to spread ourselves out, you know, spread out the cities into, we need to slow down and just sink into nature. Regenerative agriculture, give us a thumbs up if anyone's heard of that. I think it's becoming mainstream. Ploughing the earth is insane, and but there's, you know, the ways we can live. This might be contentious, but maybe if all the billionaires go and live in Mars, we can get back to normal. Who knows? So native cultures, long-lasting agricultures quite often take the form of terrace systems or agroforestry, so trees, perennial plants. Sometimes they're so camouflaged, so in tune with nature, that it's hard to notice that the land's really been farmed or adjusted at all. But I wonder if it's a coincidence that there's so much food in nature, whether our ancestors had something to do with that. So we're slowing and soaking the rain, and this sort of buffers the floods and the droughts, increases water downstream, the springs come back to life. And these water bodies, they can look very impressive, but they're only really holding back 10% of the water that comes in the rainy season. But projects can fail. People downstream can get jealous and think that their water is being stolen when they see that. It's kind of a scarcity mindset. So communication is a big part of this this project. It's happening. Talking to your neighbours, which is something I need to do because I'm about to dig up my garden. And I believe that humans, like, if we put our minds to it, if we get our priorities straight, we can do full restoration in a generation. I'd love it if the springs all come back and they're sacred sites again. I've got my water here from Glastonbury, a big barrel of it. Bit of a hippie. But I've only drunk spring water for a month now, and I think that might be the reason I'm feeling so good, looking so ruddy. Yeah, and it's fun to go and find them. I'm a water nerd now, I guess. So some of the results of the death spiral. So no judgment here. It's a combination of brittle environments and people making choices to survive. But now we've got a bigger perspective and an opportunity to make things better. So the Fertile Crescent, kind of Iraq, Euphrates, this kind of part, the birthplace of civilization and agriculture, wasn't a desert at that time. And the Sahara. I asked AI, was the Sahara green in the past? And AI said, yes, Sarah Green was a presenter on the children's show Blue Peter from 1980 to 1983. So good job, AI. Okay, the Tibetan Plateau again, another place that. And so, you know, there's other arguments saying it's not all human, but orbital shifts or other effects, they all play a role. But if we have the technology and the energy to reskin these places in green again, why wouldn't we? And the old water paradigm, call this drain brain. So in the past, again, it was valid reasons. We had to get rid of water because we didn't have sanitation and there was diseases and pests, mosquitoes. Wetlands are the best soil for food, and it was a game of survival. So, but now it's time to rethink water, and we can make the world green again. So this is sort of my lineage as a water monk. This is a project that got me hooked. It's in Tamera. It's a community of sort of peace workers, they call themselves, but they were running out of water. This is in Portugal. If you notice the road, and quite often roads are built up the valley like this, so there's more clay deposited there. But what does this mean for the rain? Ask yourself that when it rains. And so sort of the master, we'll meet him in a minute, came in, big expensive project, but put in a dam, removed that road. A bit of resistance from the local community, but they're happy now that downstream is much wetter. Springs have come back to life. And you can see, it might be the time of year the photo is taken, but there's a lot of green all around now. And this water isn't just like a sealed reservoir. This is unsealed. It's a leaky dam, not too leaky, just so the ground all around is holding onto water, feeding vegetation, and also the water level doesn't drop as quickly in the dry season. Yeah, so it's kind of earth integrated water bodies. And you know, big projects are good. They're attention grabbing. The manager of the water restoration of the community said we could have reforested the whole 100-acre site for the same price. You know, this kind of small is beautiful idea again. Having like small temporary ponds. The frogs love them as well. I think frog is my spirit animal. But yeah, it's not the biggest water body, man-made water body for sure, by a long way. So this is the master. This is Sepp Holzer. He is the most fined farmer in Europe, breaks all the rules, but he's kind of, I'd say he's a nature savant. He's been doing water retention since he was a child. There's a story in a book about him running to his mum crying because one of his early pond projects had slipped and failed. He's also quite a gruff farmer. He's apparently someone asked him how he should seal his pond, and he simply replied, "Your question gets an F." So yeah, I see it's like surgeons in the trauma theatre. There isn't really time for stupid questions. This is his farm. It's in the Alps in Austria, quite high altitude. The average temperature here is -5 degrees C. But the hill is south facing, and all his ponds and rocks absorb the sun's energy, create microclimates. He's got subtropical fruit trees, abundance. There's no inputs to the land or the aquaculture. He's able to sell a crawfish that's been wiped out everywhere else by invasive species, and cornered the market, as it were. But he's always followed nature's kind of suggestions, and rather than having fixed ideas about what the solution is. That's a big part of it. And if you notice the design now, there's no roads going straight up or down, up and down the valleys. It's all about slowing the water down, putting it into useful places and getting it into the ground. And he's also got hydropower as a result. So it's a really nice design. This is one of the bigger projects he did for a princess of Luxembourg or someone rich anyway. The trees were all dying, and lots of experts were brought in, and he famously said that the disease is in your heads to these other experts. They were injecting trees and trying to do all these kind of like sticking plaster solutions, but they restored the water and the trees came back to health. So there's no before pictures on this, but this is extra. It's an extremely dry, hot part of southern Spain. So again, the leaky ponds, you can see we'll see in a minute, there's green areas all around them, and the water's being filtered by the microorganisms in the earth. These lakes are built, you have to have a deep zone. Water does interesting and special things when it's under some pressure and it's cool. Structured water, you can look into that. There's the photic zones where the plants grow and filter the water, and then flow is key. So these structures aren't just put anywhere. You have to do test slices and dig into the ground and find veins of water, understand the landscape under as well as above the soil. So yeah, you can see the sort of green bands expanding out, happy trees, and yeah, it's through them. This is back to the Krabbiterhoft. This is a tree that's almost breaking under its load of fruit, having a good year. And he has a lot of kind of different ideas about planting trees as well. You've got to keep the tap roots intact. It's best if the tree just volunteers rather than being planted there. No pruning, just observing nature and just nudging it in the direction for food. Yeah, I was wondering recently how plants can just stand to be in the hot sun all day. And I think the photosynthesis is actually building things. It takes energy to build things, so it's kind of creating sugars from that energy. It could be absolute nonsense. Good to talk about. If you notice, the rest of the landscape around his farm is a monoculture, a tree farm, and another good resource if you're interested is Christine Jones, New Zealand scientist, I think, who studies polycultures. If you have 5 families of plants, 5 different soil biomes, they support each other through all different kinds of weather events, and they're resilient. So sometimes I think the forest fires are actually nature trying to correct a mistake, these monocultures. And yes, the city has peak insanity been reached yet? I hope so. Okay. And then a diagram about how fast the water flows away, the temperatures keep moving. And then the idea of the generational reset. We don't realize how much the world has changed because we've never known anything else. And I think that's changing now with the technology, with photos and cameras and archaeology and the rest of it. But it was all fields when I was young. Okay. Now we can change our mindsets and start to think about water catchments instead of watersheds, holding onto the water and increase. But yeah. another water hero, Rajendra Singh, in India. He was a educated doctor, well educated, wanted to help people in rural areas. Found they didn't want medicine; they wanted water. So he started digging. This water feature was created without any machines or government support, and for a while, in fact, Rajendra was under house arrest for, crimes against the government. So it's, what's the expression? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Or no good deed goes unpunished. Anyway, the story is that he met an old wise man who would lower him down wells and taught him that to look for the vertical rocks with vertical fissures, and the water would sink in there. And you see, you don't really need a big water body on the surface, just something to slow it down and get it in the ground. There's this misconception that if water sinks in, it's a waste. But in fact, it's the opposite. It's when it rushes to the ocean, that's when we get all the problems. So yeah, we've got vertical fissures, some of the results of the areas, and the statistics: 7 rivers revived. So these were rivers that would go dry in the summer. 500,000 wells. Social impact. So a lot of water collection was done by young women. Now they're going to school. And if there's any data scientists out there, I want to prove that there's a claim that this area has dropped by 2 degrees in regional average temperatures over the last few decades. And I guess that's beside the rest of the world rising at 1 degree or whatever it is. So let me know if you want help with that. So on to my experiences and the organization I was with. So Water Stories, very action orientated, very hope inducing. It's great. This is Zach, and Zach Weiss. He was an apprentice with SEP for 3 years. He's been a practitioner for 10 years all over the world, building water bodies and restoring water landscapes. And now he's just selflessly enabling other people to do the same. Well, selflessly, you have to pay a bit for the course. He works the same hours. He's inspired, and I think he's a legend. And there's a big team around him as well. It's not just him. This is what we call Digger Smile. This is just after our first go drive in the digger in the course. And yeah, we're pretty pleased with ourselves. It was fun. This is the keyway of the dam. So it looks like a war zone, but it will become a lake after the next rains. And that sort of compacted looking layer, that's clay that's being built down to the impermeable layer, sort of at the mouth of a valley, to catch as much water for as little work as possible. This, I think the pond, we're kind of observing this build, and it's about a 2-week job to build a big water body. Here's us learning how to survey and design terraces that will absorb the water, but then safely shed excess rain in large events. Obviously, that water will hopefully go to other water features to be used. This is my team. We all had a section of this eroded gully to fix, and we did a beaver dam analog mainly because we had a pile of trees right there, and they're lighter than rocks. But it was amazing. Came back the next day after we put all these rocks, tree stumps and leaves down, and the water was crystal clear, and the bugs, the pond life was already moving in. So that was the big impact I had. And we named our site Gorilla Su, which is Japanese for gorilla nest, because at one point it looked like that. This is my big rock. My digger instructor said it was going to be tricky to pick it up. That was like a red rag to a bull. So I managed it. I need to have a little bit of advice along the way, and it did take up the whole 20-minute session I had, but it was worth it. That was like a ooh yeah moment. Okay, now we get to play Where's Wally? Can't buy these t-shirts. I'll give you, where's it gone? Give you a hint. Give a thumbs up when you spot me. But we've got Pedro in here as well, the local excavator operator. And he's put his digger up like a horse rearing. And one time I think he did something a bit, dodgy, and he jumped down and said gangster. So a bit of a character. He's been converted as well. He's already built a second dam. Colleague on the course pointed out that he did get way more digger time than the rest of us during the project, because it's his full-time job. Okay, here's we had a party as well, great party, and this is Jun from Japan, who doesn't speak any English. He's also a legend. He's teaching us the traditional digging song that he does with kids. It's like dig, dig, sweat, sweat, clap, 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 and I was hopelessly out of time. Yeah. Oh, it looks like we've got our demon eyes on as well. Okay. There's a whole group building a rock spillway together, again, to avoid the erosion when the big rains do come. This whole thing was an incredible bonding experience. Portugal didn't let us down. It was 36 degrees C most of the day. In fact, it was always the days we were working and never the days off either end. And we were doing 12-hour days, and yet it was smiles all round. And I think this would be really good for youth groups and communities to do as well. It was fun. I set up an intention when I signed up for the course, because there's a at-home kind of 6-month element to it as well. Again, about to dig up my garden. And, you know, you got to shoot for the stars, you might reach the moon. So I said, I want to help fix 1 million acres. And then later on I thought, well, let's have 1 million people involved as well. Why not? I think you know you're on the right track when you're having delusions of grandeur, but we'll see. And so my idea for how to make that happen is cooperative campsites. So member-owned, member-managed centre parks in interesting countries, interesting cultures, and kind of conscious tourism. So you can go along and relax. It would be the opposite of what I did. It would be an unintensive for the adults, but you can get involved with the restoration if you want, which I think, for me, I found to just be an incredibly healing experience. My catchphrase is heal the land, heal yourself. But, you know, the major force behind this would be the child labour, though. I think if you've got a digger, has anyone been to Diggerland? Thumbs up. Heard of it? If you've got a digger, you can make children do anything. So yeah, we'll get them doing all the rock laying and things they can manage in return for points. Points mean diggers. What else? To kind of just make it easy for people. Well, the members will be in charge, so it'll be a democracy. If you want to get involved with that, this is my work in progress website, and there's some Google forms. You know, keep it. I don't know if Rich Hickey, when he said simple and he meant keep that simple, but it's all Google forms and static site. So check that out, checkdam.org. And like I mentioned, springs, I've been obsessed with the springs recently. So all 3 of my Insta posts are there, where you can see the cat that showed me that the water was safe to drink. And if you follow me, then you might see me digging up the garden with a 3-ton digger next week. Will my house and marriage survive? Cliffhanger. Okay, and heartfelt message, please. Please find a way to put your energy into something you find important and necessary in the world. I have. It's life-changing. And so now I want to open it up. If anyone has any other inspiring stories, water stories they'd like to share, or if they have any life hacks that they've already done or thinking about doing at home, let me know, and then we can have some questions at the end. I know there's at least one. Is Mr. Jez on the call? Didn't make it. No. Oh well. In India, there's a movie star created a competition, and all the villagers want to win the prize and win the money. So they make loads of these kind of soaking in holes in the ground. And like I say, it's not complicated, but a massive impact from quite a small amount of money there. Cool. Anyone got anything you want to share, or any questions?
I guess I got a question, Peter, a little bit about forest fires, because I sort of grew up thinking that, you know, there are a lot of places where forest fires are quite necessary, or they've been in a natural cycle. You get, you know, very old trees, and that there's a lot of brushwood, and it kind of needs to, it's sort of nature's way of sort of burning down. I know a lot of Aborigines used to do that kind of, that might be why Australia's a desert, because they burned everything down and moved on. You know, sort of not crop rotation, but you kind of you burn everything down, and then you move, and you find some sort of more. So that, you know, but not really talking about that. I mean, in some respects, I think people do, when they see forest fires, not to start going into kind of the sense of morale that younger people have about the planet, which I think is unhealthy. And what I liked about your talk and your style of very kind of mellow style that you have of presenting is that it wasn't sort of doom and gloom, except for the bit where you talked about, well, when a fire happens in forests, that's a terrible thing. But I just offer that I sort of, I know I'm rambling a bit, but that, you know, forest fires like in Los Angeles recently, and some of the things that happen in California, in that news cycle, people kind of feel very affected by it, because they think, well, this is, you know, hasn't happened in history. This is totally man-made and things like that, without actually kind of realizing that it's sort of, many forest fires are just a natural cycle, and it's okay for things to burn down. It's probably not okay that your house burns down, but you know, this stuff has happened for millions of years.
Absolutely, nothing's black and white, and there's green. There's always an exception that proves the rule as well, isn't there? Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that. Anyone else chip in, or?
Yeah, I have a question about the cooperative campsite sort of projects. So part of the appeal of staying and having the campsite is to contribute to the water regeneration. So like, how do those projects start? Like, what state? Because the picture you showed was a nice kind of lush.
Yes, that's the end.
What state do they start in?
Yeah, it's a good point. Year one might be, you know, the pioneers, like the pioneer trees, people who think going to Burning Man is a good idea, perhaps, but maybe you're giving back at the same time. And the first stage would actually be, you know, once enough people are on board that there's enough funds to buy something. I think it's important to buy the water catchment outright. A lot of projects I've heard about, they get somewhere beautiful with a spring, and then a year later the neighbor upstream decides to grow something else, and clear cuts and sprays, and it's, you know, with the lines on the map don't equal the lines in nature. So owning a whole catchment, I think, would be important. So it would be quite a big site. Luckily, the price of semi-arid degraded land is pretty cheap, and I think there's a big potential once it's restored to make a decent chunk of money, at least as much as the stock market. But so funds, find a site that's suitable. Maybe the springs are dried up, and then it's the design, and the professionals come in. People who've been doing this for years. Basically, that big lake that you always have at the middle of Centre Parks, or, well, it's a swimming pool there, but it would be a big lake in the middle, lots of small features to recharge the landscape, and the access where you put the tents. And I think each tent will have its little kind of copse of pioneer trees around it, and every day when you have a shower, you're, you know, feeding the trees. So it works really nicely, and even, you know, a bit of composting for plant food. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Yeah, so the surrounding parts, that's where people get involved. So there's a big project with diggers, but then there's a lot of hands-on bits, and I think it's really nice to share that with people, share that with the world. Great. Anything else? How are we doing for time? Are we bang on?
It was really interesting. Thank you.
A pleasure. Thank you for your time, and I hope you check out Water Stories, or just think about water a bit differently.
I've already sent it to my brother. He lives in Norfolk.
Oh, great. Yeah.
He lives in Eccles. And,
very close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in Eccles for about 2 weeks in a year.
Okay. Yeah, he lives in something similar.
Yeah. It's the people always push out to the real edges, don't they? The people who are the interesting people.
Proper yokels.
Yeah.
No, he'd be really interested. So
yeah, they've got too much water, haven't they? The sea is trying to take it all back. So yeah, lots of contrasts. Follow nature. Brilliant.
Right, I'm going to stop recording. And then
Thank you.